Jake Paul recently knocked out Tyron Woodley, changing his boxing record to now being 5-0. However, boxing fans are furious because they believe they spotted a hand signal from Jake that somehow means this fight was faked. Paul, who claimed a victory over Woodley in Tampa via a nasty right-hand punch in the 6th round, finally got a clear win over him. If you recall, in the last time that these two squared off, the former UFC star lost to the YouTuber via split decision in August, but this time he just dropped really hard. Personally, I think fight fans just can't believe that Jake Paul has actually been training as a boxer, and so whenever he wins, it must be fake. Some are saying that in the highlight footage from his win, you can see Jake twisting his right glove in what looks like a signal to his opponent that this was the punch that he would hit the deck on, insinuating that the winner of this fight was already prearranged like some kind of WWE event. One user tweeted out a video of them stopping and starting around the time of Jake twisting his right hand towards his body. In the tweet they say, "Rigged? The twist of the hand to let him know it's time to flop." However, even that user believed that the contact of the punch was actually real, but maintained the fight was always set up in Jake's favor. The only part of that theory that I will entertain is the fact that Jake has an invested interest in continuing his winning streak. He's basically doing what Conor McGregor did to rise to the top of the UFC, or what Floyd Mayweather did with his winning streak. He's being loud and calling people out and then backing it up with real wins in the ring. But if that winning streak stops, all the hype goes away, because even people who hate Jake Paul will buy his pay-per-view just in case this is the time they get to see him lose. The other thing is that this isn't even the first time that he's been accused of rigging fights. In his first match with Tyron, Jake got hit with a nasty right hand from Tyron in the 4th round that sent him into the ropes and really had him off kilter for the rest of the fight. The bizarre thing is that Woodley didn't finish the fight right there. As Jake came back off of the ropes, Tyron backed up instead of going for a finish, which is leading many to believe that that fight was rigged. Many people on social media believe that it was written into Woodley's contract to not beat Jake in this fight. That is a valid point because it would explain why a former UFC fighter didn't go for the finish when he had the chance. But when fighting Jake Paul, it's all about the money. If Jake keeps winning, this sets up more money for him and even more money for the severely underpaid former UFC guys. And the same thing happened when he fought Ben Askren as well. Here's the thing though, I think what's happening here is that Jake is just younger and has a lot more to prove than his opponents do. Ben barely trained for his fight, and I don't think Tyron Woodley took him seriously at all. Jake, on the other hand, is trying to prove to the world that he's a fighter, so of course he is going to be training harder than his opponents, who are only really there for a paycheck. If that's their mentality, then of course they're going to get dropped the way Nate Robinson got dropped and the way Woodley just got dropped. Everyone loves to talk like they're a fight expert on the internet because they watched the clip of where things went wrong for Woodley and believe how they would have handled it must be better, so it has to be rigged by that, I don't know, logic, I guess. I saw someone actually say, oh, no fighter would ever eat a right hand like that without at least moving their head to try and slip away from it. That's just boxing. It's the same thing when you see someone taking a penalty kick in soccer or football for our friends across the pond. The goaltender doesn't know for sure where the ball is going. They have to watch which foot they're kicking with, maybe already know how the kicker usually likes to send the ball, and then in a split second make a decision to either dive left or dive right to save it. In a boxing match, it's all of that with physical consequences. You can see when they square up that they're not even trying to take jabs at each other. At this point in the fight, both of them were looking for their opportunity to strike with a knockout punch. Jake just happened to read Tyron better, noticed him drop his guard on the left, and then with his elbow down, it leaves that whole side open for a right hook. And if Tyron went back and watched his first fight with Jake, he would remember that Jake loves hitting those right hand hooks. So why he decided to drop his guard can only be attributed to him not properly training for the fight. I really think at the end of the day, it just comes down to his opponents not caring enough. He knocked out Nate Robinson with the same right hook, and with this fight with Ben Askren, it was a straight right punch that put him down. Although not everyone on Twitter was calling the fight fake. One user writes, I despise Jake Paul, but that was actually a good clean shot. It was coming, I called it 10 seconds before you could see the right hand loading up. Not rigged, no payout, Tyron messed up big time and was slept for it. Such a fake fight would have been difficult to set up as well, considering that Woodley was brought in as a last minute replacement because Tommy Fury had to pull out due to a chest infection and a broken rib. Jake Paul also made things interesting and said that if Woodley was able to knock him out, he would get paid an extra $500,000. Plus, he gifted Tyron a Rolex watch just days before the match as a thank you for agreeing on short notice. At the end of the fight, Jake also called out Masvidal and Nate Diaz, who were in attendance but left when Woodley got dropped. In his post-fight interview, Jake said, "It was a tough fight. I had blood in my eyes. I had the job done. I was setting the punch up the whole fight. He didn't see it coming like a lumberjack timber."
Jake Paul seems to be always causing trouble, so it's no surprise that he was recently charged criminally for some illegal conduct. So if you remember, Jake Paul was arrested and charged in Scottsdale, Arizona during the George Floyd protests because he was at a mall and allegedly looted from it along with a huge crowd that passed through. This went down in May of 2020, and at that time the charges against him were dropped, although he was subjected to an FBI raid of his Calabasas mansion shortly after, but no charges were filed then either. But even though Jake has been in the clear for over a year now, and the feds decided they won't be pressing charges against him, the city of Arizona is now refiling their charges. Reps for the city of Scottsdale confirmed this to TMZ. In 2020, Jake was charged with 2 criminal misdemeanors, criminal trespass, and unlawful assembly, but the city attorney dropped the case when the feds launched its own investigation, and after learning Jake was not going to be charged on a federal level, the city decided to refile misdemeanor charges against him. If you're wondering why the federal government did not end up charging Jake, apparently they didn't have enough evidence against him, but I'm assuming what they have is enough for the city to successfully go after him. Because to refresh your memory on the evidence that they have, the city has video proof showing Jake and his crew inside the mall as it was being looted, and even though it's unclear if Jake takes anything, he witnessed multiple thefts and even filmed it. I'm assuming he was thinking of making some sort of vlog about the looting, but obviously didn't upload it after he was busted by the cops. So even though these charges are a lot lighter than whatever the federal charges would be, he still faces a maximum of 1 year in jail if he is convicted. Although I would assume that Jake is going to cooperate enough to take jail time off the table. And to remind you about this crazy raid that took place at Jake's Calabasas home and his friend and collaborator Arman Adazi's Las Vegas home, the FBI did confirm after that the raid was a result of his Arizona arrest. However, the government might have just been taking the opportunity to search Jake's house because a small militia showed up to the house with armored trucks. Even crazier footage was captured showing the cops bringing out multiple huge guns from Jake's home. Some other footage even showed Jake and some of his team being arrested. However, nothing came of this raid.
Starting things off at number 10, the body slap. Now I know I'll be changing my tune here a bit, but I will say, I think Jake is a better boxer than most give him credit for. I have no doubt if him and I stepped into a ring, he'd probably beat me. I know, surprising, right? Can't say for sure, depends how much time we got to prep and all, but I mean the guy has at least 3 inches height-wise on me. Just want to clarify, 3 inches in regards to our physical height, and maybe 30 or 35 pounds on me. I got the inches elsewhere. That being said, during a face-off against his soon-to-be opponent, Jake didn't really impress me all that much with his body shot or slap. For those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, Jake Paul is set to face off against Ben Askren, a retired MMA fighter, on April 17th. Prior to their fight, the two would meet in a face-to-face press conference of sorts, in which Jake would run his mouth, selling the fight as he does. As the two were face-to-face, Ben started to walk away while putting his hand on Jake's face and pushing off. This man gave Jake a full-on stiff arm slash face wash. Jake in response decided to slap Ben with an open hand on the body and then push his back, which led to Ben laughing. Not a good look weeks before a fight, that's for sure. At number 9, the drive-by. Once upon a time, prior to the Ben Askren fight being confirmed, Jake was trying to get something going with one of the biggest names in the combat sports world, Conor McGregor. Although McGregor wasn't entertaining the idea, Dylan Dennis, who was McGregor's jiu-jitsu partner, seemed interested. This led to Dennis and Paul chirping over social media, which has been going on for the last few years. And during a street interview with a mutual friend, Jake and his friends drove up on Dennis, throwing water balloons and toilet paper at him. As Dennis ran toward the truck, which Jake was sitting in the bed of, you heard the YouTuber and his friends tell the driver to quickly go in hopes that Dennis wouldn't catch up to them. Who knows if this was planned or not? They also had water balloons, as I mentioned before, but again, in the fight game, toilet paper, water balloons, and belly slaps just ain't Jake. It's not how you go about things. If anything, if you bring like a white belt, you know, like you're a white belt, you're a beginner, that's a better chirp than water balloons and toilet paper. On to number 8, Zayn Malik. So this story is a bit of a strange one, but in a nutshell, it seems that Jake and Zayn Malik may have run into each other while in Vegas. Well, sort of. It seems the story first broke on Twitter when Jake more or less tried to call out Zayn, saying he almost had to clap him because the former One Direction singer was so rude for no reason. Then Zayn's girlfriend Gigi Hadid decided to step up for the respectful king, as she referred to him, telling Jake that he's irrelevant and simply didn't want to hang out with Jake and his YouTube friends. Just to clarify, Gigi told Jake that Jake is irrelevant, not Zayn. She's not chirping her own man. The next morning, Jake would delete his aggressive tweet and instead put out a classic tweet along the lines of, "I can't have my phone on me while I'm drunk." It seems the two never really spoke about the incident afterward, but I doubt Zayn really cared to play into Jake's childlike games and instead is focused on raising his family. like a true respectful king. Didn't kings like just behead people and do awful things? I mean, I know you say like king and queen are like a good thing, right? But like, I don't know. I feel like kings were responsible for a lot of bad things too. That's all I'm saying. I know I know in today's day and age, being a king or a queen is a good thing, but we gotta think about what we're saying here, folks. Let's bring it on over to lucky number 7. Logan tackles Arman. Taking us back to the fantastic year that 2020 was. Prior to Jake's bout with fellow YouTuber Gib, it seems Jake's manager and brother went at it. More specifically, if you guys remember prior to his house being raided, Jake was managed by Arman Idazi. Rumor has it that Idazi has a bit of a troubled past, but clearly aligned with Jake in hopes of trying to turn that around. However, on the day of Jake's fight, when one of his assistants showed up an hour late with Jake's breakfast, Arman got very upset. This led to a confrontation which appeared to simmer down, only to ramp back up when Arman saw that Logan's camera guy was filming. Arman then swung at Logan's cameraman, which led to Logan literally jumping on Arman's back, tackling him to the ground and putting him in a chokehold, which led to Jake's manager literally tapping. It seems the two no longer work together, but this probably isn't the main reason why. More on that later. On to number 6, riots in Arizona. At the height of the George Floyd protests, in which many people were unfortunately also looting stores and some rioting, Jake Paul appeared to expose himself. Although there isn't anything about it on his YouTube page anymore, because he took it down, numerous videos and clips were shared to Twitter and Instagram showing Paul and his friends walking around the inside of a mall which was being looted. At one point, Paul shared footage of himself at the protests in Arizona, which included large groups of police with riot gear firing tear gas in their direction. As Paul explained, him and his friends were trapped and the only way out was toward the mall, so that's where they went. Why they actually went inside of the mall, as well as restaurants where windows were being shattered, I couldn't tell you. Jake said for safety reasons, but the video appeared to show otherwise. Either way, Jake claimed innocence, but it seems he was still investigated, which led to the FBI showing up to his house. More on that later as well. Yay! Halfway at 5, Team 10 is the first content house. When Jake tried to take responsibility for creating the first content house ever, well, the internet really let him have it, and that's because he didn't. Trying to make light of the recent controversies he was involved in, Jake tweeted out, I quote, "I create the first content house, then there's 500 content houses. I start boxing, now every influencer is a boxer. What's next? Y'all gonna get raided by the FBI on purpose?" Now I'll give it to him. Funny tweet for sure. But he seems to forget the first few to make content houses such as Our Second Life, which include the likes of Connor Franta and Ricky Dillon, among a handful of other creators. There was also the FaZe House, and of course the Sidemen, which includes KSI. In regards to boxing, well, both Joe Weller and KSI stepped in the ring prior to Jake. And the FBI raiding thing, well, that's not something to be so proud of, but it seems a handful of other YouTubers have since been raided by the FBI, and even before Jake was, and it's usually for bad reasons. So, not a club that you want to be a part of. At number 4, assistant drama. I'm not sure what I can or can't say thanks to the incredible policies that are very necessary to protect people from the real world. Thank you for that, YouTube. But a while back, there were some accusations and rumors involving Jake Paul's former assistant and FaZe Banks. At first, Banks was accused of more or less clotheslining Jake's former assistant when he was drunk at the club in an effort to get her to come to his table. It wasn't an attack, more so an aggressive way of trying to grab someone to join you and your friends. So I just want to clarify that. He didn't deliberately go out to hurt somebody. And then everything unraveled with the two sides apparently handling things off of camera. Unfortunately, we can't fully know what happened and what was real or not real because it seems a lot of the videos that were posted about the situation were done for views. And a serious claim like this shouldn't be turned into entertainment, yet that's what happens when you have 20-year-olds calling the shots. When all was said and done, Jake would be called out for being manipulative toward Alissa, his ex-girlfriend. FaZe explained how they put it all behind them, but he also told Jake he'd be pursuing legal action for defamation, as it seems Jake and the Team 10 group were trying to manipulate the situation and make it something it wasn't. And all because his ex, Alissa Violet, wanted to be with FaZe? Can't say for sure, but it did seem like a jealous ex-boyfriend move to me. All of a sudden, Alissa and FaZe started seeing each other, then FaZe got into drama with Jake. Wild accusations. There were claims that apparently people from Team 10 tried to get FaZe very drunk and potentially put something in his drink. Again, I don't know what's real, what's not, because it's YouTube, right? This isn't the real world. It's YouTube. So who knows, really? Number 3, COVID is a hoax. To no surprise, when a journalist claimed that Jake Paul referred to COVID-19 as a hoax, well, people were pissed. And Jake immediately tried to downplay what he said, explaining, I quote, "So this guy, this reporter, he misquoted me. He took what I said out of context, and I told him that. I told him that the whole time. COVID is very real. Like, it's killed so many people. It's killed people I know. It's killed someone very, very close to me. So that's what I'm saying. I don't even know where that came from." Okay. But then the reporter the Daily Beast's Marlo Stern released a full audio in which Jake can be heard saying, I quote, "There are people losing jobs. There are small businesses who are going bankrupt. There are millions of people who are unemployed right now. People are turning to alcohol and drugs to cope with everything that's going on. This is the most detrimental thing to our society. COVID cases are at less than 1%. And I think the disease is a hoax. You know, 98% of the news is fake, so how do we know what's actually real and what we're actually supposed to do?" Now, I will say, guys, I do feel context is important here, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm defending Jake because it's not what I'm doing, but it seems like Jake didn't necessarily mean it was fake, but maybe not as severe as initially thought it was. But again, guys, that's just my perception of what he said. Who knows what he really meant? At number 2, FBI raids. I've been alluding to this one a lot, and following the footage of Jake being seen in Arizona, while other people were clearly seen smashing windows and stealing from stores, the FBI decided to investigate Jake and his friend. And when they searched his house, photos of guns laying around were captured, with people making comparisons of Jake to that of Tony Montana, or at least people making jokes at Jake's expense. It seems the FBI raid was related to the Arizona riots. However, other sources claim that Jake's former manager, the one that Logan tackled, was being investigated for having a shady past. Either way, it seems since the raid, Jake has since distanced himself from Arman, as the two don't appear to be seen together very often anymore. And at number 1, taking out a loan for Team 10. For a guy who thinks COVID is a hoax, it sure was surprising to hear he got a government bailout because of the pandemic. In December of 2020, it was revealed that Jake Paul, on behalf of Team 10, received a Paycheck Protection Program bailout loan from the government, amounting to a total of $34,800. The loan was designed for small businesses to keep their employees on a payroll, even with the decline in business due to the pandemic. For Paul, he claimed that he employs videographers, editors, managers, and so on, yet he was still creating content, so I don't see how their wages would be affected. Jake was also seen partying in the weeks after he would have received the loan, so that kind of added insult to injury, on top of him claiming it's a hoax, and of course living in a multi-million-dollar mansion in Calabasas. So really, how much was he hurting? Couldn't tell you. Then again, as we know in business, there's always ways to, say you make less than you do, say the company's making less. There's ways around it. That's just business, unfortunately.
Jake Paul is no question one of the most hated people on the internet, and because of this, obviously he has a lot of enemies. Some of them YouTubers, some of them mainstream celebrities. But honestly, a lot of it's his own fault, as he makes enemies of whoever he can to get media clout. Starting off at number 10, we have the Martinez Twins. The people that just all around make Jake Paul look the worst are former Team 10 members, with them usually making juicy videos on why they left the squad. The worst of them was from the Martinez Twins, who were brothers from Spain, who were invited by Jake Paul to come and live with him in LA, and they were part of the OG squad, even getting a part in the massive It's Everyday Bro music video. But when they decided to leave, they made a scathing video against Jake, talking about all the reasons that they left and pointing the finger at Jake as the root of the issue. Apparently, when they came to LA and didn't speak much English, other members of the squad would talk behind their backs and laugh at them. Then they talked about a terrible prank orchestrated by Jake, where Jake destroyed their room in order to shock them. As a response, Jake called them out for trashing him publicly instead of talking privately. At the time, it ended with them all working things out. But the real end came from Nick Crompton, who revealed that the pranks were all fake, and the Martinez Twins knew the room was going to be destroyed as they built that fake room for the purpose of destroying it, basically making them flat out liars. And at number 9, Alissa Violet. Alissa was Jake's most famous ex until his fake wedding with Tana happened, and at the time they broke up, Team 10 was on fire, with many wondering how the content house even worked. When Alissa and Jake broke up, Alissa answered those questions in a long video, where she admits that she was mentally and even somewhat physically by Jake, with her mentioning that he would string her along for videos while he was hooking up with a new girl every day. Then she revealed how he would always take physical jokes too far, hurting her at one point. She lastly revealed how Jake took 20% from all his friends and enforced strict rules to live in the house. And at number 8, Logan Paul. One of the worst feuds Jake has been in was with his older brother, Logan. Logan's generally more successful and well-liked than Jake, and that obviously causes issues in their relationship, with Jake constantly trying to one-up his brother. And occasionally, Logan will fight back. Like back when diss tracks were a thing, and the brothers made multiple diss tracks taking aim at one another, even bringing personal and family issues online where they had no place being. There's also the fact that Logan hooked up with Jake's ex Alissa, and that's the main reason Alissa was kicked out of Team 10 and the whole house imploded. The brothers seem to be getting closer overall, but the fact that both of them have content houses with their own posses, both vlog and both now box, is obviously a recipe for disaster. And at number 7, Keemstar. It's somewhat Keemstar's job to talk badly about other creators when covering their drama. But the hate Keemstar seems to have for the Paul brothers is next level, and back in the day, he would cover any negative story about them. And he constantly comes for Jake and makes it clear that he doesn't like him, like in this one tweet where Keem wrote, quote, "I've never hated Jake Paul as much as I do today. He owed everyone an apology for his actions, and instead he made excuses and virtue signaling to cover up his BS. If he's innocent as he claims, then release all the raw footage to prove it. You can't, you won't, cause you lie." And at number 6, KSI. Even though KSI and Jake didn't start out as enemies, Jake has made an enemy out of KSI, with all the trash talking he does about him. KSI fought Jake's older brother Logan in a huge boxing event, where Jake fought KSI's younger brother, Deji. But after Jake won, he kept calling out KSI, saying that Jake would do anything to fight KSI next. After his older brother Logan lost to his second fight to KSI, Jake is even hungrier than ever and wants to avenge his family's name. Halfway number 5, Conor McGregor. A new enemy of Jake's is definitely Conor McGregor, as Jake is doing everything in his power to get a fight with the UFC boxer, especially now that Logan will be fighting Floyd Mayweather Jr. Recently, Jake uploaded an insane 1-minute video disrespectfully calling out Conor for the fight, saying in the video, quote, "Good morning, Conor McGregor. My team sent you a $50 million offer this morning. 50 million cash proof of funds, the biggest offer you've ever been offered, but you're still scared to fight me. Conor, you're ducking me because you don't want to lose to a YouTuber. You're 0-1 as a boxer, I'm 2-0 as a boxer." Then going on to trash talk him some more, even bringing up Conor's wife and calling her a 4. And to make matters worse, after dissing Conor's wife, Dee Devlin, Jake Paul decided to follow her on Instagram, with her now being the only person that he follows. And I'm sure McGregor wants to knock him out right about now. And at number 4, Austin McBroom. Another one from the boxing world, but Austin has made an enemy out of Jake and his brother when he challenged them both to a fight. Austin called Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and Bryce Hall weak, weak AF, and weaker on Instagram. Austin wasn't done though, and he uploaded a photo to his Instagram where he called out Jake by name, writing in the caption, quote, "There's a whole lot of boxing talk going on lately. I've been an athlete my entire life, so it would be disappointing for me not to get involved. Jake Paul been running for me for years. I got $5 million for whoever steps into the ring with me." And then Jake clapped back, writing savagely, quote, "I'd be more worried about your wife in my DMs." Then because he wanted to be even shadier, Jake posted a poll to his Instagram saying, quote, "Should I post the receipts with the options yes and no, don't home wreck?" Then in the meantime, Catherine posted a screenshot of that to her story, writing, quote, "I forgot you existed until my husband mentioned you today. Jake Paul, I'll be sending you an invoice for all this free publicity." But then she quickly deleted it. Then Jake responded to that by showing a message of Catherine in his DMs, with Catherine writing, "Delete your story, WTF," which I guess shows there might have been some proof to his claims. And this one is really wild, but I can definitely see this fight actually taking place. And at number 3, Gigi Hadid. This one is incredibly random, but Jake made an enemy out of Gigi Hadid when she had no choice but to call him out for his childish behavior. It all started when Jake and Gigi's boyfriend Zayn Malik had a confrontation at a Vegas hotel. After Jake tweeted out that he was gonna clap Zayn from One Direction, Gigi responded back, quote, "LOL, cause he doesn't care to hang with you and your embarrassing crew of YouTube groupies. Home alone with his best friends like a respectful king, cause he has me, sweetie. Unbothered by your irrelevant, ugly ass. Go to bed." And that was basically the bird of the century. And after that Jake had no choice but to sit down, with Jake tweeting out a semi-apology later, blaming it on the alcohol. And at number 2, Tana Mojo. Although Tana and Jake are on good terms now, there was a point in time where Tana made Jake look incredibly bad. This was after their fake wedding, where it was clear that Tana had real feelings, while Jake was just using her for clout. After they publicly got married, then split shortly after, Tana set things straight in a long and emotional video. In the video, she spills tons of tea about Jake and their relationship, and in summary, she says that her feelings were real, and she tried to be the cool girl and have an open relationship like he wanted, but it wasn't realistic for her, and she ended up getting her heart broken when he went partying in Ibiza with women for their honeymoon. And after all of this, it really made Jake look like a clout-chasing ass. And the fact that Jake started dating Julia Rose like immediately after Tana also was just a really bad look. And finally, number 1, Disney. Disney definitely hates Jake Paul because they hate anything that makes them look bad, obviously. And Jake did that in spades when he embarrassed the company so bad that he was fired from the hit Disney show Bizarre Bark. The story here is that when Jake was becoming popular on Vine, he also wanted to try his hand at acting, and he was cast on Bizarre Bark. But since Jake started Team 10 and vlogging around that same time, it wasn't long before his online life started to negatively affect his Disney Channel show. After a massive slew of bad press, Jake and Disney released statements that they had parted ways. with Disney saying in their statement, quote, "We mutually agree that Jake Paul will leave his role." Jake also spoke about the matter on his Twitter, where he says that they mutually decided it was his time to leave and he would be pursuing social media full time. But even though the statements made it seem like they left off on a good note, we know that's not the case. And we learned later that he was fired from Disney for being a nuisance practically anywhere and everywhere.